I got a friend. Her daughter is the number 2 girls basketball player in the country. I got a couple of friends whose kids are being recruited by places like Marquette, Kansas, Oregon. Steve and I know a young man just went to Oregon, So these are high major programs, 17, 18,000 fans at every game. So if I'm the father or the mother of an 11th grader, and I'm seeing all these rule changes coming down the pike. I'm getting letters from North Carolina, Kansas, Villanova, places like that. What steps should I be taking to kind of cultivate and to protect the brand? Because that's what we're talking about. If we're talking about endorsements, how do I protect the brand and position my child to best take advantage of these opportunities that we think are going to present themselves over the next couple of years?
This is probably not the answer that mid-major schools want to hear. It's not the answer that low majors want to hear. But what I would likely do is I would likely find the highest profile program in the largest media market possible, and I would make a decision based on that. Or if it's football, I would look at an Alabama or Clemson
LSU.
or an LSU or a House,
Florida,
and they're not
Florida.
Large markets. I would look for a high
10
profile.
years ago, Florida. Yeah.
Florida, exactly, for over a period of time. But people are going to look at that and say, well, that's exactly why this system shouldn't work.
Yes.
Well, but let's just be candid about it. Those are the schools that are competing for national championships under the old system. Those are the schools that were competing for the national championships in the 1970s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s. So not much is going to be different. This may sound kind of crass and blunt. There is no such thing as amateur sports anymore.
Yeah.
When you have parents that invest, sometimes $500,000 for the kids to play travel baseball and travel volleyball and travel soccer from the time they're 7 years old until the time they graduate, they have an expectation of future earnings or scholarships. So that's not the amateur model doesn't work anymore. So this is just, we are right now in the exact same place that Olympic track and field athletes were when Edwin Moses was winning back in the 1970s. And there was this big fight over whether or not Olympic athletes should be able to accept, track and field specifically should be able to accept prize money and appearance fees. We're no different there.
You describe the decision-making process as crass. And I do agree that I think the general public will apply that kind of perspective to it. But if you place a university president, an athletic director, or a coach in that same situation where they have to choose between these institutions, they're going to make the exact same calculations.
Exact same choice.
And over time, it's really bothered me that it's like when these kids, from the projects or from rural Indiana somewhere, when they make that kind of calculation based on their own self-interest, they're destroying the game. But when that guy just left East Tennessee State and went to Wake Forest yesterday, nobody said a peep. What do you think, Buck?
No, I'm glad that you used the example of the hood and rural Indiana, just so that we're fair to both sides of the picture. It is just that. And I think that I cringed a little bit with what Don said, because it was true, in terms of making that decision, unfortunately. So I was actually trying to find a way to make the choice broader for a prospective, college athlete, if we still are going to use, that terminology, college athlete. So, if you're a top rated athlete coming out of high school and you choose the route of attending college and playing for an institution, it is a brand choice. It's always been a brand choice. When players choose to go to Kentucky and play basketball, that's a brand choice. They know that you're branded as a potential NBA player if you go there. And that's, again, we don't have to go through, that's giving Kentucky a plug, but you can say Duke, we can plug them all.
North Carolina, Arizona.
Yeah. And I don't mean, yes, because I shouldn't have said any school. We know the brand choices. What I think the concern is when you go down the line, and again, I'm going to go to Don on, I don't, as you go down, I don't know if it will just be pushed down the line. With the new, I'm going to go a little bit to also what we talked about before with Jalen Green and the choices, and obviously basketball's my thing, and we don't really have that choice in football. To play in the NFL, you basically have to play college football. And I always thought that was wrong, because you can't tell me that everybody that can play in the NFL is playing college football.
Well, yes. Well, I actually represented a player several years ago, Robert Chancey, who was a 6th-round pick with the Baltimore Orioles back in 1992. And he played several years of minor league baseball with the Orioles and Mets. And then he wound up signing a free agent football contract with the San Diego Chargers. And he started with the Chargers, with the Bears, played with the Cowboys for a year, and then went back to Chargers. He never played second college football.
That's great. Well, and again, I say that's great.
You're not required to, but you got to be out of school for 3 years.
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is there's no other league to play in.
Oh, no.
That's what I meant by when I say that you have to, not or you have to you have to be 3 years out of high school, right?
Correct.
To be eligible for the NFL draft and eligible to play. But there's no other choice where to play. At least with basketball, you have a choice. Mm-hmm. But in my point that I was going to make in terms of the decision for an athlete, I just wonder how it's going to, for lack of a better phrase, trickle down. Because, we're talking about the top rated. And so it'll all come down. Again, Don said it, it's going to be based on budgets. And, just recently I had a kid that was going to grad transfer, and the decision between the Big East and I think it was the ACC, or it might have been the ACC, was about TV network. Because the Big East on Fox Sports 1 and ACC might be on the CBS and the CBS network. So all those are going to be, it is, as you said, it's all about branding and what's going to enhance your brand.
Steve?
I think
Steve's still there?
Yeah. I think that a kid making, Buck hit it right on the head when he talked about a particular school. Those branding schools, right? Those schools, if a kid goes there, he's projected to be a pro. No one is going to, when those elite kids are choosing from those blue bloods, as we call them, they're not choosing based off of who is going to give them an endorsement deal, because they're going to get them regardless. Those kids are getting them. It didn't matter where they were going, whether it was 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. They were getting those options. It's because at the end of the day, it's how fast they can get to the money. The reason why the Jalen Green decision was so impactful, because to Buck's point, there have been guys that came out. I mean, Brandon Jennings did it. Mm-hmm. But if you go back and look at who was the number 1 high school ranked player his year, it was Brandon Jennings. He went number 10 in the draft. Conversely, Tyreek Evans, DeMar DeRozan, those guys kind of went up by going to college. This is the first instance where we're going to see a kid who chose to go this route, and it's probably going to
be really, because we got Ball this year. and they're talking about Ball going really high. And he
Well,
didn't play
Ball
college.
will go really high. Ball was never going to college. See, there's some examples of these. Even Brandon, if you remember, Don knows this. Brandon tried to go to college.
He did.
Couldn't pass the test. Yeah.
No, he did pass the
No.
test.
They challenged
Yeah.
him.
He
They
challenged.
challenged.
Yes.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Pass it. So his choice was he had no choice. The Ball situation, his dad turned him pro at 15, 16 years old. The college
Sneaker
was
money.
never an option in these situations. This is the first time where a kid had a legitimate chance to choose between, Jeremy Tyler was one. This is the first chance where we've seen Emmanuel Moutier, if I'm not mistaken, Don, wasn't it?
Correct.
With his,
That's correct. Moutier couldn't get qualified, and he couldn't qualify, and he wound up going to Europe
for a couple of months. And in every instance, people thought Moutier was the top pick in the draft. So at one point, and this is the first time where we've seen a legitimate kid who had a legitimate opportunity to take a Division I scholarship and attend for 6 or 7 months, choose a different path. So when you ask about what should we be telling these elite kids, it goes back to what I was originally saying. Listen, the big boys, and I'm just going to use the word big boys instead of saying a school. I understand, I get what, because no, Buck, you're correct.
Yeah.
I don't want to give nobody no play, but the reality
Exactly.
of it is, like the big boys, they already had this stuff lined up. This stuff was not new to them. And the problem, while I originally talked about the bias that these colleges are going to have, to what Don's point was, okay, so these mid-major schools, these HBCUs, they're going to thrive off of the mom and pop stores, the local sneaker stores, and these things like that. And they're going to tell these kids, you can't go there and get endorsement deals. So, Del, you and I've had conversations. We both talked about this time last year. You were educating me on the money, the guaranteed, what was it, cost of attendance? What was it?
Yeah.
That's what, like, to me, that's more valuable than this, because for a fact you're getting it. There is no control over it. There's no this, there's no that. And now it's based off of levels. The reason why I'm not excited or jumping through hoops over this is because for those players that you're talking about, the ones you said, Del, that you have friends who are top 2, the number 2 rated high school basketball player in the country, most likely in this case, let's say it's a male, he's not worried about this type of thing because that was understood going on.
I mean, Zion had millions of Instagram, Twitter followers. I mean, they'll pay him, thousands of dollars for a tweet, man.
They will. But Zion is going to go. But when you talked about elite kids and picking their schools, would Zion had going to, if someone came to Zion and said, we're going to guarantee you $2 million in endorsement deals, but we need you to go to Middle Tennessee State as opposed to Duke, where's he going?
Duke. Well, you think? What do you? Yeah, I was going to say, Steven, you still think he goes to Duke?
I still think he goes to Duke because Duke was guaranteeing him. Buck, you know the answer to this question. The difference financially between being the number 1 pick in the draft and the number 10 pick in the draft is astronomical.
Yep.
And
Hey, Steve, I'm not gonna lie. Like you say, like that number 1 pick now, it's I think $9-10 million.
$9-10 million. So Moutier going to China for that 800,000, whatever he got, he cost himself about $9 to $10 million by not being able to go to college.
Yeah.
Economically, it's not the same. So that has to be taken into account when people are thinking about this. So Del, in terms of now, where I think you're making a valid point, or you're posing the question, is do I think that there is a market there for these internet and Twitter followers and Instagram followers? Absolutely. I don't know if it's because Duke is going to monitor every single endorsement opportunity that comes Zion's way. They're going to scrutinize, because the moment they go on the Dell. So T.I., Grand Hustle says, hey, we want to sponsor him. You think Duke's going to let Grand Hustle sponsor Zion Williamson?
Mm-hmm.
Because the moment one of those alumni says, wait a minute, we heard T.I. talk on one of those records about B's and H's and this, and this. They're going to monitor. The monitoring is, so I don't think this is going to have the same type of effect long term.
And Stephen, that's exactly what I'm concerned about. That, and you hit it on the head, because the reality of the matter is the issue of an endorsement contract. That's an individual issue that should be made by a player, by a family, as to who that player family wants to associate with. But the one thing that's missing here is NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, NHL, MLS. They all have players unions that are there to negotiate with the management side to address issues like this. And this is another issue. Let's assume you've got a kid that's affiliated with an Under Armour sponsored AAU team, but and Under Armour signs him to an endorsement contract coming out of high school. Because the reality of the matter is, high school athletic association rules aside, there's no reason now under the current circumstances that a shoe company can't sign a graduating high school senior to an enormous endorsement deal. So let's assume we've got an Under Armour sponsored kid, signs an endorsement contract, and then that kid goes to Duke. Is he going to be allowed to wear Under Armour tennis shoes at Duke? And if not, why not?
Well, take it further. Could they police him? Suppose he wants to wear the Under Armour casual stuff,
exactly,
not the basketball stuff. Could Duke prevent him from wearing them on campus?
And candidly, I've had a problem with that for years. I don't think they should be able to. I mean, we all go back to the Michael Jordan issue with Nike when he I think the Dream Team was sponsored by one company, and he was a Nike athlete. Several years ago, I represented two women's basketball players. They started out at University of Kansas and wound up transferring to UNLV, Dylan and Dakota Gonzalez. And I don't know if you know who they are, but they have huge Instagram and social media followings. Huge. They're both very attractive young women. They have huge Instagram and social media followings. Well, the NCAA essentially forced them out of college basketball because essentially they got to a point where they had to make a choice between the social media followings. There was a reality show opportunity and music and all these other things where they were essentially forced away from the game. And it just all struck me as just totally crazy. They were twins. And I can think of all these other instances where I've represented very high-level players, and as a part of the certification process, the families had to produce card titles and bank statements, and cell phone records, and all these other things to establish that they were still, quote, amateurs. And I think we're just, what we're about to do now is we're getting ready to shift the dynamic here. The paradigm is going to shift because now, rather than producing that, now they're going to have to produce endorsement contracts to ensure that the endorsement contracts are not inconsistent with the values of the school, and the school's going to determine what their values are. So now we're going to have players that are not going to be able to sign up. So are they not going to be able to sign endorsement contracts with African-American owned businesses, with Black-owned businesses that might not be consistent with the values of a particular university? I mean, there's a lot of subjectivity here that really concerns me. And I think there are going to be a lot of fights over this issue in the future.
Derek, you wanted to get in?
Yeah, sure. So I think, when you're speaking of a brand and brand management and a kid having brand equity, and it's starting at that early age. I mean, we all know kids who, like Maurice Rice from Philadelphia. I think he could have had a deal at 6th grade, and what I would say to a parent and a kid that's in that situation early is you got to have a good team around you that you understand and that understands your direction, where you're going. And I say that because, as you go through this process, and I've had a player who's pretty elite in baseball and in football, And sometimes the parents can become overeager to get into a deal that changes their lifestyle. And when they do that, they could be clipping the wings of their child at an early age and hurting their brand, because you may, discredit the full value of what your child is worth and what that athlete is worth, and therefore hurting them in the future in terms of what their market value is as they become who they're supposed to be. And so I would tell them that education is first and foremost the thing that they need. They need to educate themselves as to what brand management is and what my particular case value is. And through that, you start to put your team together and understand where their allegiance is and what they know in the marketplace, what they know about the NFL and NBA. Really do your homework, because you could get into a place where, and this happens now, where you have parents, we all know parents that overestimate their kid but undervalue them in terms of what they will take for you to have a relationship with them, for you to be able to advise them. So these parents and the people around them really have to know and how to navigate as this comes up, because as Don said and the other guys said, there will be a fight, because at this point there's ego behind it, because you have influence yourself before you go to Duke. If you have 2 million followers, the people in your corner could be telling you, you don't need that school, you don't need that platform, you can do this yourself. So you will have that fight where Under Armour or whatever company has already pinpointed you as the guy of the future while you are in AAU and your senior year coming out. And now you have that fight with a Nike school or an Adidas school or what have you, because you believe, I am who they want. Like Don said, who would you rather sign? Would you rather sign the school or that individual athlete? If you ask any brand, they're going to go towards the athlete because they're direct to consumer. And so you really have to have the right team around you. You have to have the education about, these deals, because it's just like you being a senior in college. You already know what the freshman girls are going to go through when they come there. They have no clue what they're walking into. But you as a senior, you've been doing it for so long. So these CEOs and CMOs of these big companies, every year it's the same cycle of individuals who are uneducated to the process, and we can get them on these type of deals, and you put them in those kind of Scottie Pippen deals where you've committed yourself long term. That's where we're going to get into an issue again, is that if you can get somebody at 16, 17 coming out of school and commit them to a longer term deal, if you don't have the right people around you, you could be severely undervaluing yourself. So I would say education and getting the right team.
So are we in agreement then? Are we entering a time where the business and endorsement opportunities should absolutely, let's say for the top 400, 500, 600 football players, the top 200, 300 basketball players across the board, should these opportunities be a part of the discussion during the recruiting process? Steve.
I'm going to say, again, I think I come from a different perspective. I'm going to say no I'm going to say no, and I'm going to tell you why. So Derek brought up something where I was hoping this is where we were going to go, where we talked about if Don has a kid. I remember watching Don following his trajectory of his son, a soccer player, and I thought it was pretty cool to see an African-American kid from the States being really, really good at soccer. If I'm not mistaken, he put him at IMG first, right? Or something like that.
Correct. He did.
Yeah, I remember seeing all those things. And, Buck having some pretty high school kids that he has been a part of. He brought up I always forget the Greek dude's name.
Papagiannis.
Him. The thing is, their ultimate goal is to get to the league. Now, when you talk about having advisors, what happens when a kid does an endorsement deal with the local jewelry store, and that local jewelry store is somehow tied to something that is not good 2 years down the line, and now that kid is now being brought up into something that's going to hurt his character, and now his draft stock plummets? because
Will it really be up to the family? If you top 200-300, is it going to be up to you, or because you're going to have to deal with it whether you have an advisor or not? Because they're going to come, Steve.
they are going to come.
I know.
But this is the thing. LeBron James lost his high school eligibility for taking
A Hummer and a jersey, yes.
something that in 2 months later he was going to be able to get. We've had basketball players in our city who travel with entourages of people that they grew up with that are probably not the best characters on the planet, or whatever the case may be, or have shady backgrounds. And now they could be affiliated with somebody, and this kid could do them a favor. Jamal Lewis committed a federal crime for setting up a drug deal using his cell phone for a friend that he grew up against. Now we're opening up a Pandora's box of things that, one, again, is already happening.
But aren't you making the case for an advisor and saying that you shouldn't have an advisor?
That's a different argument. I thought you were asking me, do I think that should be something that is discussed?
I didn't say you had to enter into it. I'm saying, should it be part of the discussion? You can have the discussion and not take the deal.
I think you should. So to Derek's point, I think that these top kids should have an advisor. I am a big proponent of kids having advisors who know what they're talking about. I'm an entertainment lawyer. I would never advise a young 15-year-old rap kid not to have a manager. I would never advise a 13-year-old tennis star not to have a manager or something along those lines. I think people should have advisors if the parent is not knowledgeable of what their kid is walking into. And a lot of times they're not, which is why sometimes, Dale, you and I disagree on this, but I'm gonna bring it up. We've had conversations about why I think AAU coaches are so valuable. You always say, Steve, I'm not going to tell a college coach. What do you always say? I'm not going to tell a college coach how to play a kid or when to play a kid and things like that.
I don't.
Right? And that's your opinion. And you're not wrong. But I believe college coaches have their own agendas, which is to win games and to create as much financial security for their family as possible, which is nothing wrong with that. But I believe when a kid comes from a certain AAU program, that AAU coach is essentially his advisor or manager, because when that college coach is not playing that kid as promised, prior to this new rule where the kid can leave right away, the AAU coach has the luxury to tell the coach, hey man, if you don't play you told me you was gonna play my kid, I don't feel comfortable sending any of my other kids to that school. That's power and influence.
I don't have a problem with an AAU guy doing that. I'm not going to.
You understand? You weren't. No, I understood it. So I was just saying to you, I think the top kids, if their ultimate goal is to make, I think you put up something, you either told us me on the phone, or you put up something where you said you read somewhere that the average Division I football player was worth $250,000 in endorsements. Did you tell me that?
I think it was Power 5 or Big or SEC or something like that.
Okay, Power 5. So again, we're talking about the I'm gonna say it now. We're talking about the Clemsons, the LSUs, the Ohio States, Florida, Alabama, and those schools. I've been to one of those schools, and Don's from Alabama. I know what it looks like when a college town shuts down for a football game. The whole town shuts down. Nothing moves except football during that weekend. Those kids. But I don't know if you have 100 scholarship athletes on Ohio State, I don't even know if Columbus, Ohio can support $26 million in endorsement deals for those particular kids. Somebody could tell me if I'm wrong. So I think the ultimate conversation is going to come down to who gives you the best chance of being a pro, who gives you the best chance of playing, and Dale, I've always liked your argument about that whole cost of attendance. That to me is more of a game changer than this is, in my opinion. Don, I saw you shaking your head. What do you want to say?
You know what? I really think that it's going to have a significant impact on recruiting. I mean, but I don't think that's a bad thing, because the reality of the matter is, that Steve, you mentioned, you touched on this earlier. When high-level athletes make a decision, whether it's baseball, football, basketball, when they make a decision on their college destination, they're factoring in as 16, 17-year-olds which school is going to be a better launching pad for me at the shortest period of time to a professional career. So they're already doing it. They're already making economic decisions already. The reality of the matter is, The system does not want them to make decisions based on things like that.
Mm.
But you know, my adopted son was a McDonald's All-American back in 2001, declared out of high school, drafted in the second round by the Denver Nuggets out of St. Jude High School right here in Montgomery, and then played in the D League for a couple of years and played his career out in Europe. Every coach that walked into my house in 2001, he was on McDonald's All-American team with Tyson Chandler and Kwame Brown and Eddie Curry and DeJuan Wagner. They were all on the McDonald's team. Every coach that walked into my house, they came in and talked and said this: I can deliver you to the NBA. They didn't say a damn thing about him getting a degree. They said nothing about him getting a degree.
Don, who was this player?
Ousmane Cisse.
Oh, I remember. Okay.
Ousmane Cisse. They didn't say a damn thing about him getting a degree. They came in and talked about how they could get him to the NBA. And I'll be frank with you, because of my involvement in sports, I was extremely cynical about, frankly, hearing any of them, because I thought they were all – Dell, I don't know if I can say this or not, but I got to say.
Yeah, you say what you want, man.
I thought they were all full of shit. Walked into the door, and you know, a number of them were legendary and all that. I thought they were all full of shit because the truth of the matter is they came in and they talked. It was basically an inducement based on money, but they didn't say it. It was an inducement based on money. I can turn you into a pro. Well, if you can turn them into a pro, exactly what are you going to get out of it? And frankly, that's one of the things that kind of shaped my view with all of the McDonald's All-American players that I represented both before him and after. I've seen kids be suspended by the NCAA because a local guy that was an ex-college player or an ex-professional player took an interest in him when he was 15, 16 years old and gave him free basketball skill work, and his family didn't pay for it. That's an NCAA violation. If you got a guy that lives in a community and he helps a kid out, he doesn't charge, doesn't pay the kid's family doesn't pay, that's a violation. So I take a different perspective on this because of the fact that I've seen so much just ridiculous. I saw Renardo Sidney's career be destroyed because of amateurism issues. I saw Omer Yurtseven, who's a starting center at Georgetown now. I represented him when he was cleared at NC State. The NCAA suspended him for 9 games at the beginning of his career. Played in Turkey, played for Fenerbahce, with a professional team there. He was in their club program. Not a pro. He was a kid. He was a youth player in a youth program. So I've seen the worst sides of this, and now I don't think everybody's jumping around saying how this is going to change college sports. They're going to attempt to restrict these kids' ability to earn income. They are now saying that they're going to be able to do all these things. There are going to be so many handcuffs placed on athletes and their ability to earn income that I don't think things are going to change that much. One of the things that I would like to see out of this is I would like to see, there was a period of time in the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s before big money got into college sports, when guys that looked like us were deeply involved in socializing these kids. Well, NCAA rules have attempted to lock guys that look like us out of involvement with the kids right now on community.
And lock some of them up.
Oh, hell yeah, and lock some of them up. You're exactly right. It's my hope that now this may be a bridge to people in these communities to now get more involved from an economic standpoint in the lives of kids, because these kids are assets to their communities, and hopefully this will be a bridge back to the community.
Don, can I ask you a question? Because I don't remember, but I think this is going to sum up a lot of things. Chris Webber and the whole Michigan thing, their issue, what was their actual legal issue, if you don't mind?
Yeah.
I think it was $600,000 was the issue.
But
Well,
was the individual?
the issue there, with Chris Webber was he was actually charged with perjury.
Perjury, I understand that. I don't mean about the Michigan investigation. Why would they? What was their violation?
The violation was them having accepted benefits from
Martin.
you know. Did they accept benefits in violation of NCAA rules? Yeah, they almost certainly violated NCAA rules. Chris Webber's issue was he lied about having ever violated NCAA rules.
Right.
But this is the issue. Mm-hmm. I guess I always have a difficult time with this, and this is something that I addressed with my law students. This is something that I've addressed for years. Violating NCAA rules, in my mind, does not constitute, that's a derivative crime. If violation of NCAA rules is a crime, well, hell, I might have lied on my 4-H club application when I was a kid. Okay, so is that a crime as well? And I guess the difficulty that I'm now having is if the things that Christian Dawkins, the things that he was charged and convicted of having done, would that now, under this new iteration of NCAA legislation, would that now still be a crime? And I'm not sure that we can answer that. If shoe companies funneling money through the players under the old rules constituted a violation of NCAA rules and a federal criminal offense, would it now under the new rules? So we're going into the quick, simple, easy way for me to solve the problem. It's really simple. Is that the NCAA needs to be out of the business of giving a damn about whether or not kids get money.
Money, yeah.
That end of story. End of story. If they get money from boosters, if they get money from schools, if they get money, who cares? A 16-year-old is a 16-year-old, whether he's getting money or not. A 17-year-old running back is a 17-year-old running back, whether he gets money or not.
Don, the reason why I asked that question about Chris Webber is because if I'm not mistaken, the guy that supposedly gave him money, he was like a neighborhood car salesman, or
he actually was involved with the auto workers union in some way. He worked with a manufacturer, with a car manufacturer there, and he was a fairly significant guy with the union.
And they viewed him. He was also portrayed as a guy that had a lot of street connections or something. There was something about. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, he actually, that's the way that they tried to portray him, but that wasn't necessarily an accurate portrayal.
So the reason why I asked that question to kind of beat home my thought process is the discrimination, as we talk about, that is still going to come from out of this, because they're going to be able to determine and tell us who is and who is not a legitimate business person that we can.
That is correct.
They're going to tell us. So now you're asking, well, where did they get their money from to give to you? At that point, and I know 3 of us on this have law degrees. At that point, you are restricting, and I think that's what Don's he's been advocating ever since I started following him way before. I've noticed that is that the whole entire system is fucked up. We don't keep it a bean.
Look, this is, and I'll ask every one of you guys on this panel. Can anyone on this panel, other than Johnny Manziel, name a single Caucasian athlete that's been suspended over an amateurism violation?
Who?
Can anyone name?
Who'd you say, Del?
No, I said he's saying who got jammed up that wasn't.
I don't think Manziel actually got jammed up. He still won the Heisman, didn't he?
Well, he did, but he was suspended. He was suspended for an amateurism violation.
Oh, the following year, right?
No.
Yeah, he was suspended. Can anyone name a single Caucasian athlete that's been suspended for an amateurism?
Don, what about the kid? Wasn't there a guy, a dual sport athlete at Colorado that was?
Yeah, you're talking. Well, actually, that was the skier. That was Jeremy Bloom.
Yes, skier. Yes,
Jeremy Bloom. He lost his football eligibility. He lost his football eligibility because he received sponsorship as a skier. As a skier, that was years ago. He wound up going to court, wound up losing, ultimately skied the Olympics, and wound up playing the NFL for a short period of time.
Well, the Eagles, ironically, was 6th-round draft pick.
Exactly. But you know, the interesting thing about it is, if you look at all of these players that have been investigated, suspended, cleared, they have been African American and international student athletes. And my concern, excuse me, and this has been a concern for years, is that NCAA legislation has been selectively applied to African American and international athletes, more severely and selectively applied to African American and international athletes for years. And I have concerns that the way that these rules are going to be applied will be selective as well. The quick, simple, easy way would be total deregulation of this whole amateurism, of this whole bylaw 12. Total deregulation. We're not going to spend time trying to find out where you got money. We don't care where you got money. Go, as long as you're not getting money from illegal sources, go at it. Because otherwise there's a potential for too much selectivity and selective application of the rules.
Derek?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I was thinking of the guy from Fresno State when you asked that question, Don. I don't know if he was suspended during the time he was in college. I think Chris Herring was his name.
Yeah, he was doing heroin.
But not for amateurs. Chris Herring.
No, not for and look, that's how. Hey, Derek, we searching so hard.
Yeah,
we struggling.
We're like, yo, he was.
I'm like,
he
wait,
was
did he
doing
rob
heroin.
somebody? Did he rob somebody? Heroin.
What about
That's
the white guy that killed somebody? Oh yeah. But then he got off. So we said, nah, he good.
I was over here wrecking my brain like, who?
Man, you say, hey, Derek, you saw, Derek, what I know about a scare? I was like, oh, I got one.
Yeah,
I was
blown. I'm like, I'm trying to look him up.
Down at the beach on